Welcome back.
Thank
Uh,
you.
this is my friend Tara. Tara, I'll let you introduce yourself just so folks know who you are if they don't already.
Yeah, well, great to be here. Thanks for having me on again. My name is Tarah Valenti. I am a registered dietitian, and we're going to dive into another very interesting nutrition topic today.
So we're going to keep this bipartisan, but I have been told I'm a little, sometimes I get tone. So, but again, this isn't a politics conversation. This is just a reality conversation, but there's a lot going on from the Department of Health and Human Services, from RFK, regardless of where our political stances are. I am curious. So he's doing a lot of things. Some, well, we're going to keep our conversation to the nutrition side of things. But I do have some clients who are like, it's so funny. They're like, can we be excited? Like, can we find a silver lining here? Like, obviously, there's things that we can say that we're not happy about, but of some of the changes, and I'll specifically changing requirements around food dyes in our food system, and high fructose corn syrup, and sort of how we're starting to see some of the big companies like Pepsi and the cereal companies, like they're changing Fruit Loops and da 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 da. Like, I was curious from a registered dietitian, from like an actual nutritionist or nutrition professional's perspective, like, are these good changes that we should be happy about? I'm
So,
scared.
yeah, it's as someone who has worked in this field for a very long time, I will say the answer is nuanced. When we're looking at things like food dyes and high fructose corn syrup, to be completely honest, it's not a horrible thing to target. Like, we know that there are some concerns with the food dyes. We know that there are some potential risks with the food dyes. There does need to be more research on these things. But if we're steering away from artificial food dyes and getting more in line with what some of the other countries in the world are doing, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Do I think that there are other more important things that we could be focusing on? Absolutely.
Sure, yeah.
I think with same thing with high fructose corn syrup, that one impact debatable in terms of actual health benefits of cutting it out of things like Coca-Cola. The difference between high fructose corn syrup and cane sugar on like a molecular level is really pretty minimal. The response in the body, pretty similar. When we think about both of these things, where do we find artificial food dyes and high fructose corn syrup? Processed foods. We find an abundance of it in processed foods. And our problem in the United States isn't necessarily that we're consuming too much food dyes or too much high fructose corn syrup specifically. It's more of a problem of overconsumption of processed foods in general as a whole. So,
and these
that would
foods will still
be,
be processed just
yeah.
without a list of ingredients.
Yeah. So, like, if we look at the dietary benefits of Fruit Loops, for
Yeah.
example,
Well,
the
now
problem
the
with,
red ones will be beet based, I'm told.
okay, so maybe some benefits from that. But if we look at like, if we look at the nutritional value of a product like that, removing food dyes is not going to improve the nutritional value of that product much, if at all. It might reduce some risks if you're eating Fruit Loops and foods that are colored like that every single day, all the time. But if you're behaving that way, I think we have bigger fish to fry, if that makes sense.
Right. So it's like, it's not going to have this huge, or likely not to have this huge impact. Obviously, like, oh, politicians lying.
America is not going to suddenly get healthier because of these changes.
Right. Okay. And because there's still process. So I think and we've talked about that before. We can direct folks to that video as well. Interestingly, I mean, and this is now just kind of wild. Like, I think so. What I wanted to say is, well, it's probably not going to move the needle, but I mean, maybe maybe there's some benefits to it. It certainly isn't going to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
And then, well, and then the argument is like education. I don't want to like, there is an education problem. I mean, there's like people like me who I read stuff all the time. I'm still confused. I still have to, and I'm lucky. I have an RD who I'm friends with, who I can ask these questions to, and I have a fancy computer, so I could like help spread this out. But I do think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like some of the concern is now these foods are going to be deemed as safe, and people are like, oh, I can drink all the Coca-Cola I want because they got rid of the high fructose corn syrup. So I think for probably people, if you're drinking Coca-Cola and you're eating Fruit Loops, like there's some socioeconomic and some education and some just like overall caring there, and you're probably going to consume. My guess would be you're going to consume what you're going to consume, and you're just like, great. But there might be some people who like feel as though like, oh, I have more freedom now. I don't have to watch it. Like I was going to try to give up Coca-Cola, but now it's like water.
Yeah, I really hope not.
I hope not too.
I do think that there is a little bit of a disconnect in some cases, and part of it is marketing. When we look at something like, I keep using Fruit Loops as an example because it is one of the key examples that has been used. But when we look at something like Fruit Loops and it's like neon colored, I think about like Cheetos too, or like a neon colored food. The first thing you think when you see something that's like a neon is not, this is good for me. But when you see something that is more like earth tony, you do kind of immediately think this is probably healthier, just because the brain is biased like that. One looks very toned down and more less artificial, so to speak, whereas the other one looks very, very artificial. And I've heard some people talking about the appeal to children and how the part of the reason why they make these foods, these bright, colorful, attractive colors, is because they're more appealing to kids. And there is a chance that maybe if they're not quite so bright and colorful, kids will be less drawn to them.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I actually have no idea if that's going to be effective, if it's going to have a beneficial effect in that way. I imagine that the box is still going to be very brightly colored and attractive to kids. So I don't know, but I have heard some people argue that point, and I'd be curious to see if there's any good research that comes out that shows that there is a benefit in that area.
I was listening to NPR the other day in the shower, and they were talking about this. And at some point, someone says, they're talking about Fruit Loops, obviously, and said, we could just like make them gray. Just like, and I literally thought, I think I said out loud, like, ew, I would never eat that. Like there is a lot to it. And the thing that jumps to my mind is we tease my best friend all the time because he's like addicted to Skittles. Like, I don't know any adults besides this one person who eats Skittles. Like, just no shame. Love, like, have your treat. I like cake. It's fine. But I'm like, I would never eat Skittles. And once I thought, was like, let me be a nice friend. And I bought it's from Yum brand, I think. They're like an all natural, no chemical, no dyes, and they're called Giggles. And they look like the saddest things you've ever seen. I mean, they're colored with beets and they're made with real food. They're like, they're not as bright. Yeah. And I'm like, he'll eat them now. He eats them. I think he thinks they are the same. So I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see. I'm assuming that these food companies have, well, I should never assume in today's climate, but that they've they wouldn't agree to do it if they didn't think they had a solution to continue to sell the product. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But in general, it sounds like, we don't have to be mad about it on the merits of what it did. Like, it's natural to be like, why are we worrying about this? Because it's really not going to move the needle. But we certainly don't need to be upset about it. It could be positive or neutral.
Right. Yeah. I think it's one of those things that it's not going to make a massive impact on the health of Americans, but do I think we should keep all of these food dyes around? Not necessarily. I think it's a good thing to be more mindful about getting rid of elements of food that could be harmful to our health, that's fantastic. Let's
Yeah.
keep making changes in that direction. But I also think that we could be focusing on much more important matters. But that's a conversation for another day.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yep.